Hello, and welcome back to the Carbon Capture Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Piekarski, and today we are joined by Rob Berra, Group Senior Vice President of CCUS at Worley. Rob, thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm really pleased to join you and Carbon Capture Magazine and share a bit about what Worley is doing in the CCUS space.
Of course. Yeah, we're excited to learn, and we usually start things out here with learning more about our guests. So would you mind telling us a bit about your background and Worley as a company?
Absolutely. So for me, I've been in the industry 33 years, working primarily in oil, gas, and chemicals, doing everything from upstream, midstream, and downstream. My background leans toward business building initiatives, which is why I was asked to take on this responsibility for Worley. About 2 years ago, I began building Worley's approach to CCUS. We had won a couple of projects here and there, and it was becoming pretty evident that this was a market that Worley was well placed to support. And CCUS is part of a broader shift toward energy transition that Worley is focused on. I'm not a lifelong CCUS expert, but like many in this nascent industry, I have the skills to advance the development of projects and build a business where Worley can be a leader. And over the last 2 years, my learning curve has been pretty steep, but I'm now confident that I have a strong understanding of the major players and the fundamentals for making projects successful and how to effectively engage the multiple stakeholders to support a productive ecosystem of capabilities. Shifting to Worley, Worley is a leading global provider of professional project and asset services in the energy, chemicals, and resource sectors. This basically means oil, gas, chemicals, power, and mining related industries. We're located in nearly 50 countries with over 50,000 employees. And Worley is a publicly traded company on the Australian Stock Exchange and headquartered in Australia. I'd mentioned that right now Worley has supported over 300 projects across the CCUS value chain, and more specifically, we're in an advanced project development phase with over 30 projects, meaning pre-feed, feed, and execute phases. And of these 30 plus projects, that equates to over 75 million tons per annum of CO2 captured. We're pretty proud of that engagement because these projects basically represent nearly double the world's current capture management of CO2. So Worley works across the full value chain for CCUS, from capture to dehydration, compression, transportation, utilization, storage. We feel this integrated experience and approach helps to differentiate Worley. So again, I'm happy to be here with you today and to talk more about CCUS.
Thank you, Rob. That sounds great. So of those multiple projects that are in the works, can you share some information on the projects that you find most exciting?
Absolutely. So with over 30 advanced projects in the works, honestly, they're all exciting in their own way. I'll just frame out a few examples and share with you some of the things that we're involved in. We have multiple projects in the UK. We're working with Drax, which is the largest BECCS or bioenergy CCUS project in the world. We're also supporting natural gas-fired combined cycle power plants and their decarbonization requirements. We're supporting refinery units and cement plants as well. These are all post-combustion carbon capture projects with some elements of dehydration, compression, and transportation. Moving over to the U.S., we have a wide variety of projects ranging from chemical plant processes with pre-combustion capture, CO2 pipelines, storage assessments, and many advanced studies where we're looking at how can we combine CO2 molecules with hydrogen and nitrogen to form e-fuels and other products. And naturally, the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, has provided many new funding mechanisms to support CCUS projects. Much of this is coming through the Department of Energy, and we're working with our customers to support their funding requests and their funding opportunity announcements for the FOAs, and then the resulting project advancements that will come through the funding as it's approved. It's a similar story in Western Canada. We're working on primarily post-combustion projects for chemical and refining customers. There's also a significant interest in customers within the oil sands area as well, and we're expecting this to continue to grow for us. The Middle East is just beginning to become active, and we're involved in multiple facility-wide and even portfolio-wide studies to help our customers make the best choices on their CCS configurations and the right capacities and what technologies they want to deploy. And I certainly can't forget about Southeast Asia and Australia. Worley has a very strong presence in this region, and it's helped us to engage projects both onshore and offshore. Many of the projects in this region are focused on CO2 capture and sequestration related to gas processing and LNG. And we're building a strong portfolio of projects for CO2 transportation and compression and injection through offshore assets. So, like I said, these are all exciting projects. Each bring unusual situations and so far have generally required bespoke solutions. I also want to mention that we're involved in some very large projects, the largest being 8 million tons per annum. But we also work on projects down to pilot plants and demo plants, which are measured literally in tons captured per day. So whether we're looking at the bespoke nature of much of our current work, we're also looking toward opportunities to provide standardized solutions and looking at modules that can be deployed quickly and at scale, so we can help our customers begin their decarbonization of their facilities just as quickly as possible.
Okay, yeah, that's quite the portfolio that Worley has. And I know that all of these different methods have different technologies and regulations. Is there a particular type of project that's easier to scale, or do they all have specific segments in common that are particularly complex to bring to scale?
Yeah, thanks for that, Danielle. Our portfolio of projects does span the full value chain of CCUS and includes many different forms of capture technology. To date, most of these projects that we've been involved with have generally been bespoke designs. This is due to a wide number of variables and factors, including the capacity of the capture, the concentration of the capture, the available plot space, is it onshore, offshore, is it pre-combustion, post-combustion, even looking at direct air capture and contaminants, transportation strategies, a variety of things like that. Worley is generally technology neutral, meaning we can work with any third-party technology to best satisfy the requirements of the project and what our customers are looking for. All that said, we're working toward a number of strategies to help drive down the overall cost of capture and the total levelized cost of carbon. And many of these strategies are related to execution methodologies, which is an area that Worley is very strong in. And that's what we are. We're a project delivery company. And our ability to execute projects efficiently and quickly and with predictable outcomes is what really helps to differentiate Worley in the market. And this is coupled with our continuous growing knowledge and experience with a wide variety of CCUS projects, which helps to bring commonality and consistency to many aspects of the design, the engineering, fabrication, and construction. All of these which will benefit deployment of the carbon capture infrastructure. So some of the things we're advancing to support execution efficiencies include supply chain optimization, engineering tools and methods that facilitate rapid replication, experienced resources with depth and required skills, and there's a variety of other things that we're working as well. But beyond the execution improvements, we're looking closely at opportunities for standardization, modularization, and replication, what we call SMR. And Worley is working in the space on projects related to CCUS, but also other decarbonization-related concepts, including hydrogen and e-fuels. So there are capture applications that are similar in nature. The similarity creates opportunities for a productized approach. And there are a few companies out there today that offer technology that are working toward a standardized approach as well. Generally, these concepts support projects in post-combustion capture applications and at smaller capacities. It's typically more difficult to replicate point source capture from larger capacities. These facilities are usually bolted on to existing infrastructure assets such as power plants or refinery units or cement facilities. And there may be challenging available plot space. There may be significant integration with the base plant. These integrations can be quite complicated, balancing the needs of the capture facility and also the available utilities from the base plant. There are other applications of larger scale capture that lend themselves to replication and standardization as well. For example, direct air capture, or DAC. These facilities and technologies are still in early development, but great advancements are being made, and they don't necessarily need to be located adjacent to existing facilities, which offers flexibility in the layout and the configuration of the plant. And naturally, these DAC plants will likely be clustered together and tie into common transportation and storage infrastructure. So overall, providing a lower level of complexity, but not without challenges. I would also mention offshore carbon capture and CO2 management. In gas processing and production applications, CO2 is captured at the point of production, and these projects are more focused on the transportation and injection side of it. In offshore environments, which means subsea pipelines, platforms, and all the subsea kit that goes with it, some of these projects can be large volumes, and these projects are measured in millions of tons per annum, which means large pipelines as well. And with most offshore projects, water depth has a significant impact on the complexity of the project, along with the balance of the new build assets and potential reuse or expansion of existing oil and gas assets. And then lastly, you asked about the regulation angle of these projects, and that's a whole other subject. We could spend a lot of time on that alone, but I'll just mention that it's a dynamic space with new announcements being issued on a regular basis. And as I mentioned, Worley's portfolio of projects is global. We have a major CCUS activity in all the major markets around the world. And with this breadth of coverage, we're constantly monitoring the regulation situations and how that impacts the economic viability of these projects. And these regulations go beyond the price of carbon and potential cost recovery methods. But as we all know, permitting and access to storage varies greatly around the world as well. And availability of storage locations, onshore and offshore, and the associated transportation methods all have real impacts on the scoping and the concept development of these projects, which therefore impacts the complexity of the scaling.
Okay, so how does the scalability of carbon capture technology relate to other climate mitigation strategies, such as renewable energy development or energy efficiency improvement?
Yeah, so carbon capture, or more broadly, CCUS, is just one of several decarbonization strategies that must be deployed throughout our industrial industries if we're going to have any chance of slowing down global warming due to greenhouse gases. And one thing in particular about CCUS is that it's ready today. We've been capturing CO2 as an industry for over 40 years, and we know how to do it. Technologies have improved and infrastructure continues to grow to support this concept. But the bottom line is it's a known and successful tool in our toolbox for decarbonization. CCUS is also truly scalable. There are a variety of available capture technologies, and we're currently able to capture CO2 in volumes up to several million tons per annum. Worley is currently working on several projects right now that capture in the upper envelope of the industry capabilities, meaning 3 million, 5 million, and even 8 million tons per annum. These are large facilities and investments, but they are possible and advancing toward deployment. Not only is the technology well understood, but the components in CCUS are relatively simple types of kit. For the most part, we're talking about compressors, pumps, towers, heat exchangers, all the supporting materials and components that are part of our daily lives in the industrial world. And we're not really inventing anything substantially new. There are new technology advancements that continue to evolve with specialized equipment and learning curves, but the basics are pretty well known and there already. I would add that some industrial segments are hard to abate. This means they have limited options on how to manage their CO2 emissions. In particular, we can think about the cement industry, which is in this category. The cement kilns and other facilities require fuel, which comes from a variety of sources, which could be replaced by alternatives. But the overall process of creating the concrete and the cement actually gives off a large quantity of CO2. And there are limited options for replacing this process. So CO2 must be captured and dealt with. And again, that's where CCUS comes in. As I mentioned before, CCUS is only one tool in the toolbox. There are other forms that come from renewable energy sources, things like solar and wind and other developing concepts. Hydrogen as a fuel also offers alternative ways to fuel different equipment items, whether it's boilers or gas turbines, but this is still a bit of a way off. So, across the industry and the full spectrum of energy transition, all these concepts are growing and expanding and slowly replacing various forms of fossil fuels. But to really move quickly, we will need CCUS to help us deliver in the near term. And by that, I mean the next 10 to 20 years before these other forms of energies can be built out sufficiently to displace fossil fuels. Even when that does happen, we should expect CCUS to still have a role for the hard to abate sectors and in support of continued use of fossil-related sources, specifically for petrochemical production and other markets. And then lastly, we have to all think about energy efficiency. We can reduce the need for energy because of better systems, methods, and technologies, and this will help tighten the gap between different forms of energy supply and the required demand. And I would add that Worley is working with each of these decarbonization strategies to help our customers find the best solution for their specific needs. But it's going to take all of these strategies to make an impact on the global carbon footprint and all of our decarbonization expectations. Another aspect I do want to point out related to this is that none of these concepts are going to produce the results we need unless we as an industry truly get after it and implement these projects. Planning and studying all need to happen to make the best choices and consider the economics, but ultimately we need to find a way to get it done. We got to get it done quickly. We need to look for more efficient ways of working, not only in project execution, but also in the decision-making around capital deployment. Decisions have to become easier and faster to make these large investments and then to deploy their development. The industry is used to risk management, which includes capital deployment discipline, and which is generally slow and ultra-conservative. And we need regulations and incentives that help to drive companies to recognize the opportunity and the needs. So, they're willing to advance all these projects at a faster pace. If not, we as a human society will really struggle to meet the expectations of the Paris Agreement of 1.5 degrees by 2050 and any of the other near-term milestones that are along this journey.
Absolutely. So you touched a bit in that last response on the success of scaling carbon capture. What are some successful case studies or examples of scaling the technology that are in different regions or industries?
Yeah, thanks. I'll start with DAC. Worley is working with 1.5, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Oxy Low Carbon Ventures, along with their technology partner, Carbon Engineering, working to deploy DAC plants on a wide scale. So Worley is working with these companies as the EPC delivery partner for the development of the world's largest DAC plant, which is located in West Texas, with what they call the Stratos project. Worley helped Oxy and Carbon Engineering with the FEED scope, and the FEED evolved into EPC and now is advancing toward implementation. You may have seen a couple months ago there was a groundbreaking announcement. This project is now moving well into construction, and the expectation is to capture 500,000 tons per annum of CO2 by 2025, which is a large volume. And Oxy states, and you can look further at their website, that they plan to advance the concept to build 130 more DAC plants by 2035. So this is a remarkable journey, and Worley's proud to be part of it. And with any developing technology, having a successful and proven delivery partner is really critical to the deployment of the successful project development. Another example that is very different is our support to the advancement of the Kasawari CCS project in Malaysia. This development is set to be one of the world's largest offshore CCS project and aims to capture over 3 million tons of CO2 per year. This project, we're providing detailed design and engineering for the platform, jacket, bridge, and the subsea pipeline. We started with the concept select, went through FEED, and now we've advanced past FID into the detailed design work. This is a project which is a first of its kind in Malaysia. Includes a new CCUS platform and a bridge to an existing facility, a substantial subsea pipeline that will then take CO2 for reinjection in a depleted oil and gas reservoir with an existing wellhead platform. This is a project we employed a lot of digital systems and tools to help drive down the hours required for design, and so it really helped to improve the commercial viability of the project. And again, this is a situation where delivery and execution efficiencies really help to support commercial implementation. So these are two projects that are in the public domain. More information can be found on our internet or on the website. We've been involved in many other projects that are under confidentiality obligations, so I can't talk too specifically about them, but just I'll give a quick snapshot of some other things we're working on. As I mentioned, we're on projects all around the world. The cement industry is a more recent market segment that is gaining significant traction. We're involved in early engineering for a cement project in Europe and also for a project in Australia that converts CO2 into green methanol. There are also multiple projects in the U.S. that are looking to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act and the 45Q tax incentives. And we're helping multiple customers apply for funding from the U.S. Department of Energy through grants and incentives. And these projects vary pretty widely, but generally are in chemical refining, power type markets. We're also involved in large-scale projects in Canada with post-combustion technologies that support some of the assets that are related to the oil sands. So generally, Worley is involved in just about every form of CCUS related project across the value chain. And I'd say it's really an exciting space to be in right now, and I'm really pleased to be part of making a difference and advancing these decarbonization strategies.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob. We are coming near the end of our time here. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close out?
Thanks, Danielle. I think we covered it pretty well through our time together. It actually went pretty quick. Again, I want to thank Carbon Capture Magazine for the opportunity, especially you, Danielle, for giving us a chance to share some of these things that Worley is doing in the CCUS space. It is an exciting time, and I look forward to where the industry will take us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And again, we are joined by Rob Berra, Group Senior Vice President of CCUS at Worley. And thank you to our listeners as well for tuning into today's podcast. If you are interested in joining us, please reach out to Carbon Capture Magazine, and we look forward to next time.